Hello, guitar nerds. This is Rod Gels, and what we have here in this Sunday night vibe is tips and tricks for a funkier guitar in 2021. When we talk about funk guitar, what we're dealing with is kind of an art form that in many places, including probably where I live right now, it is not understood. It is not understood. It's an underappreciated, possibly, art form. Not really understood. Everybody knows who Jimi Hendrix is. Everybody knows who the stars are, like the Eddie Van Halens, like the even the George Bensons, and then the Eric Claptons, the Jeff Becks, and all that. But funky guitar is a different kind of thing. It's like you're playing the right guitar part for the groove to send the groove forward. So what that often means is you're not spotlighting yourself. You're playing for the song. So with that said, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about some of the tips and tricks that I have to help you with a funkier guitar in this year, 2021. Alrighty, so before we get started, here is my low E. You can tune up to that. My first big tip is study the art form. When I say study the art form, many of these players are not household names. Probably the only household name on my list is Prince. And Prince is a musical genius, and nobody can take that away from him. Funky guitar, he's as funky as anybody. That's one of many things he does. He does so many things well. So funk is not his entire bag. Yeah, he is incredible musical talent. With that said, many of the funky people that we're talking about, that I'm talking about, these were guys that Prince looked up to when he was growing up. You want to do the homework. You want to do Jimmy Nolan's Catfish Collins, which is Bootsy's brother, rhythm guitar. Very, very great rhythm guitar sex machine. Okay. Iconic guitar parts that were in the style of Jimmy Nolan. But Tony Maiden, Charles Smith, Kool and the Gang. One of my favorite funky guitar players is Charles Smith. Also, shout out to Kool and the Gang, because of those of you who don't know and have not, you think of, when you think of Kool and the Gang, you think of Ladies Night. They were a band, a real funk band, like it was real. They started with jazz beginnings in the 1960s. Wonderful. They have a lot of wonderful albums, groove-based, stuff dating back to the 1960s, before they ever became this pop funk thing that they were known for much later on. Now Rogers, Wah Wah Watson, Motown's greasy, wah-driven, nasty guitar, psychedelic, the world's on fire kind of guitar parts. That was Wah Wah Watson. So with that said, is a funky guitar, let's talk a little bit about setup. When I think about setup, what I'm dealing with, this, believe it or not, is my funky guitar. Number one. Is there a difference between my other guitars and this guitar? Yes, there is. This thing is set up to be strummed and to be hit like a percussion instrument. Okay, the funky guitar drums are an essential part of funk, rhythm, groove, pocket. This pick is like a drumstick. Okay, so this guitar is set up a little bit like the little bit off further off the strings. You got to wrestle with it a little bit. Okay. Also, the strings are thicker. I prefer a thicker string when I'm playing funk rhythm guitar. You want to have something that sounds that of a thicker string. So these are 10s, but I've done 11s. 10s and 11s. Thicker string than 9s. It's not, when we talk about funk guitar, we're not talking about shredding, even though there's a lot of examples of people shredding on funk albums, the Jesse Johnsons of the world, and guitar and slave. So with that, funk guitar is rhythm guitar. It's not lead guitar. You can play leads over top of funk grooves, but funk guitar means finding that pocket, which is equal parts freedom and equal parts discipline. Okay, so you have to have the discipline to be able to play that chicken grease over and over and over and over again for the next 15 minutes, if that is what the groove calls for. And James Brown, that's often what the groove calls for. It is a vamp to be played over and over and over again. And you got to be precise about it. You got to get your rhythms together. You get your articulations together. You got to get your mind together to be able to play the same thing like that. And it's a discipline. It's a body thing. Okay, funk is as much of a part of body motion and getting that thing and that feel into your body. All right. Now, with that said, the last part of the funky guitar setup here is what I think of is the pick. Okay, my pick is not overly thick. All right, my pick is not overly thick. With that said, you don't want a thick pick. It's harsh sounding. It's not nice. It's just nasty sounding. If it's too thick, the other part of that is you'll break strings. You're too loud, you can't fit in. And so what you're trying to do is create the part that serves the song, serves the groove, makes the groove go forward. Okay, so with that said, rhythm and funk. Funky rhythm is 16th note rhythm. 16th note rhythm. When we say 16th note rhythm, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. Any kind of combination of 16th note rhythms and percussiveness, and that's called scratching. All right, so even unamplified, that is one thing that I like about this guitar, a funky guitar. It's semi-hollow, certainly, but the other part of this is it sounds good without it even. Songs are written, grooves are written because of this. Because of this. All right. So 16th note rhythms, as I said, we learn to play parts that are within the groove of the drums and the bass and the keys and all that, and you're trying to find your place in that mix. Now, when we talk about funk harmony is what I call 3 layers deep. It means 3 things to me. Funk harmony means, first thing we have is single note line stuff. If I want to play a funky guitar part, that's called a double stop. Double stops are layer 2. Okay, and then last but not least, we want to put chords in there too. And you got to get your voicings down in order to do that. So the one thing we want to be cognizant of is this guitar style came from jazz musicians, a lot of it. And we're taking the jazz musicians' discipline and their thoughtfulness and figuring out all possibilities on their instrument and applying it to funky rhythms. And those were the earliest funk guitar players. The Charles Smiths of the world had jazz beginnings. Okay, and they would figure out like all these different voicings, all of which, this is part of our lineage and our discipline. So 3 and 4 note chords, or 2 note chords even. Okay, so if I wanted to, like, instead of going like, I could go like this. Which that is a 2 note voicing. Instead of going like this, again, less notes is better, because a lot of times in funk, you have horns, you have keyboards, you have bass, you have all these different things going on. We don't need to hear you strumming 6 strings all the time. It sounds rinky-dink. Anyway, with that said, know your chords. The last thing we want to talk about, and one of the most important musical aesthetics that I personally endorse, and then you have your rock musicians, and then you have your blues musicians, all of which, like in jazz or in rock and blues, guitar is vitally important, and they're like the superhero of the ensemble. In funk, the rhythm section is the superhero, which means you're not the most impressed, and to adapt and to melt and to compromise. And when I say compromise is not an evil thing. It is not an evil term. It means you're adjusting to make it right. All right. So that is what the funk discipline does. The funk guitar, it's all about the groove. All right. So with that said, being a team player, this will take you far in life, not just as a guitar player, but as a human being. And it's like, I think a lot of us need to be reminded of that, myself included, I'm sure. So with that said, I'm going to play a few funky notes, and I will leave you with that, and then we will see you in 7 days with another lesson. We love guitar nerds in the Virtual Academy. Thank you. My name is Rod. See you next week.